Good morning and welcome. My name is Klaus Obermeit. There we go. Welcome. I'm Klaus Obermeit, chair of the worship committee. We are in charge of the Sunday service when our settled minister, the Reverend Jay Wolin, is not in the pulpit. And as you can see, if you've been here before, we sometimes do things a little bit differently. We have some special guests here today. Christine Bruno is filling in for Don Bryn at the piano. She's here with her father, Joe Sr. at the trumpet. And we have Hot Club SOQ to provide special music today. If you'll stand, please. That's Kevin Ayland on the violin, and John McLaughlin on the guitar. We also extend a special welcome to our visitors, both on campus and on live stream. We invite our visitors to participate in any of our events. We welcome visitors to find out more about us and Unitarian Universalism. And you can do so through a link on our homepage, which takes you to our virtual guest book. If you are in person, you can sign up at the welcome table right outside the sanctuary. And if you do, we'll send you our weekly newsletter and Zoom links to our virtual events. We invite you to join us for coffee and conversation after the service. We look forward to getting to know each other. There's also a special announcement. Come celebrate New Year's Day with your Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota family from 2 to 4 p.m. in the Reeb Room and courtyard. We will discuss New Year's Day resolutions, superstitions, and traditions, play games and or make vision boards for 2025 and beyond. Bring a savory treat or a favorite beverage to share. Start the new year right with laughter and kinship. Mary Lou and Dana Keller will be your hosts. All are welcome. So let's begin the service then with, if you'll rise as you're willing and able, and sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. We usually do this in the middle of the service, but like I said, we're doing things a bit differently today. Spirit of Life. First number from Kevin and John. Here they are.
Right on it.
Thank you. John Wesley, the famous Methodist theologian, once said, "Though we cannot think alike, may we not love alike? May we not be of one heart, although we are not of one opinion? Without all doubt, we may." In that spirit of pluralism, let us light our chalice. Please join me in the affirmation printed in your order of service and displayed on the screen behind me. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Let's go back to that first part. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings. Folks, that's today's theme, sacred beings. Today we celebrate three of our sacred beings, their diversity in culture, experience, and theology. We will learn from them as they tell of their search for truth and meaning. May we embrace our differences and cherish our commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And speaking of pluralism, this is the holiday season. With Christmas behind us, two other holidays deserve our attention, Hanukkah and Kwanzaa. And we have two more sacred beings, Edie Kaplan and Doris Lewis, to tell us about them. Since Hanukkah came first this year, we'll let Edie Kaplan go first.
Thank you, Klaus. Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm so happy to be here today. Title of my talk is Bring More Light into the World at This Dark Time. Much of it is taken from a writing by Rabbi Michael Bernholtz of Temple B'nai Israel in Clearwater. 4 nights ago, the celebration of Hanukkah began. As we light the Hanukkah, the 9-branch menorah, we are not only honoring the victory of the Maccabees over the Greeks, the few over the many, but also the rededication of the Temple of Jerusalem and the miraculous ways God brought light into the world in this season, as in years past. In addition to helping us honor and remember the story of Hanukkah, this ritual of lighting is also a response to the season of the year. While the date of Hanukkah floats on the solar calendar, for the Hebrew calendar, it begins as the moon is waning. Through the 8 days of Hanukkah, we witness the moon reappearing in the new month. Hanukkah also falls close to the winter solstice, the longest night and the shortest day of the year. So in this season, the light of the moon is decreasing at the same time that the length of sunlight over the course of our 24-hour day is decreasing. We light the Hanukkah in a way that supports us in this darkest part of the year. For this ritual, we follow the instructions of our ancient sage Hillel, who instructed us to start with 1 candle on the Hanukkah and add 1 additional candle each night. His reasoning was simple. We want to increase the light in the world. If we think about the season and the waning moon and shortening of the day, this increase of light is physical as well as spiritual. As we experience this phenomenon in our natural world, we are kindling the lights of our Hanukkah, adding the physical light as the light outside is decreasing. For those of us sensitive to this season of a lot of darkness, how powerful it is for us to have a ritual of increasing light in our world. This year, as we witness the physical light of the Hanukkah responding to the darkness outside, that experience can empower our acts of increasing the spiritual light of our deeds. We can find ways of increasing light not just with our Hanukkah, but finding ways to start with a small light of the Spirit and planning ways to increase our energy and our acts of kindness and caring in this dark and cold time of the year. Thank you and happy Hanukkah.
Good morning and happy Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a 7-day celebration starting December 26th and ending on January 1st in the U.S. and in other African nations in the diaspora. Kwanzaa is a cultural celebration and not religious. So whatever your tradition, you can celebrate Kwanzaa. It was created in 1966 by Malala Karinga to inspire, to build, and reinforce the family. Kwanzaa comes from the Swahili phrase, first fruits. The 7 days of the holiday correspond to the 7 principles. Each day of Kwanzaa, we light a candle. On December 26th, we lit the center black candle, representing in Swahili unity or umoja. The focus on this day is to help each other. December 27th, we lit a red candle. This is the first red candle and is pronounced Kujijakalia. Swahili for self-determination, where we define ourselves, we name ourselves, and we create and speak for ourselves. December 28th, we light a third candle, which is a green candle. It's Ujima, Swahili for collective work and responsibility. A day where the family can work together for a common goal. And in my household, it's to get rid of boxes of stuff. Okay. Today is the 4th day, Ujamaa, Swahili for cooperative economics. A second candle is lit, so the purpose is to build commerce in the community. Tomorrow, December 30th, we will light a second green candle, representing Swahili for purpose. We're focused on restoring our people through vocation and community. Kaumba, Swahili for creativity, where we use and enrich the community through the arts. And January 1st, the last day, is Imani, Swahili for faith. This is a time to celebrate faith and honor family and community traditions. And we finally light the last green candle. So you are invited to carry these positive thoughts and principles with you and your family and community throughout 2025. We'll need it.
Thank you, Doris. And now Julie has a story to share with us.
Good morning. Today's story is Question Time, written by the Director of Religious Education here, Catherine Bonner. Miss Lacey pulled into the parking lot of the UU Academy. She was so excited because her dreams of becoming a teacher were coming true. Sure, it was only for a few months while Miss Thompson was out having a baby, but you've got to start somewhere. This was the end of her first week leading Miss Thompson's 5th grade class. Every Friday, Miss Thompson holds a question time in which the students can ask any question they are curious about. Miss Lacey was a little nervous about what this would be like, but open to giving it a try. Miss Lacey gathered the children. It's question time. Okay, children, who has the first question, she asked. How come giraffes have such long necks? Miss Lacey had that one nailed as she explained the evolution of giraffe through the droughts of Africa. Anna asked the next question. Where do babies come from? Oh, Miss Lacey thought to herself, even though we are at UU Academy, I haven't talked to the parents about how they would like to have that one answered. Before she could answer, Anna said, my mom says a stork brings them. Jude piped in, a stork? What a dork. How would Miss Thompson's belly be so big if a stork brought babies? Clearly they come out of the belly button somehow. Miss Lacey jumped in quickly. First of all, just because someone has a different belief doesn't mean you should call them a name. Maybe they are right in their belief. Anyway, you should ask your parents about that question. Woof, dodge that bullet, Miss Lacey thought. Okay, next question. Is there a God? That is a great question. Some religions, like Christianity and the Jewish faith, believe there is only one God. Others, like the old Greeks, Druids, Hindus, think there are many gods. Some people don't think there's a God because it doesn't make sense to them. And some people are agnostic because it means they just don't know. UUs think that whatever you believe about this question is okay. Last question. How can I tell what is true? Good grief, Miss Lacey thought. How can these fifth graders have so many existential questions? Maybe I'm asleep dreaming, and since I'm so nervous, Miss Lacey pinched her arm. Ow! I guess I am awake. Are you okay, Miss Lacey? Yes, just trying to think of the best way to tell you how to know what is true. Do any of you know where your beliefs come from? A belief is something that you think is true. Some of our beliefs come from our parents or our family. Some of them come from our places of religion. Some of them come from what we see on the TV, the computer, or on our phone. Some of them come from school or what you're reading, but not all things we learn are true. A scientist will look for truth by observing the world around them or the reactions to physical things have from forces we cannot see, like wind. We can't see it, but it's there. No one sees God, but people say they can feel God just like we could feel the wind. Does that mean it's not real? One of the things I know is sometimes our bodies, not just our brains, can help us figure out what is true. You'll get a feeling in your stomach. Listen to it. Sometimes we know it's true, true changes with new information, like we used to believe the earth was flat. In the United States, no one can tell you what to believe or what is true. That is something each of us needs to figure out, and that is the truth UUs get behind. Now I invite the children or youth here today to join me in the West Wing to learn more about Kwanzaa and building our blessings through community.
One flame we need, which is our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Go ahead.
Check, check, check.
There we go. We are having a bit of a mic issue, a problem with my
Check,
mic,
check.
so we're checking that. Obviously, we're having a little problem with our timer as well.
I thought I was going to be interviewed by Klaus, but I'm going to be interviewed by his pocket.
So you thought, yeah. Okay, Margie. This is
Hi.
Margie Gibson. It's your turn to tell us what you believe. So, as you said, you were a former Catholic. So tell us your spiritual journey. What happened?
Hi, everybody. I was brought up Catholic, and not only Catholic, but like, well, I grew up upstairs from my Italian grandparents, and I lived in a neighborhood that was Italian, Irish, Catholic immigrants, and all I knew was Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 8 years, and like I said, it was very sheltered, and so when I went to high school, we had moved, and so when I went to high school, I remember meeting this, I think he was my lab partner in science, and he told me that he was studying all these different religions because he got to make his own decision soon, like at 17 or something. And I remember going home and telling my parents I thought that was the coolest thing. They didn't agree, but I've been curious. And actually the story read today rings so true for me, is that I live in the question. I've been questioning ever since then. After going out into the world, I met all these different people from, the Jews, they were the other guys, the way I was brought up. And I've just always been curious. So, and I hope there's a higher power. I figure I don't have anything to lose by thinking that, because I know I can't do it all myself. In fact, I keep a little note in my purse that says, "I got this," and that's a quote from God. So sometimes when I am, trying so hard to control what might happen or whatever, I try to let go and know that it's not something I need to do. That there's my stuff, there's your stuff, and then there's the universe stuff or God's stuff. So I try to just live in that question and see what it brings.
Yeah, I asked you, and you said you're definitely not an atheist. So you do believe in some kind of higher power. Do you have a name for your higher power?
No, but along the way, when I hear things like Mother, Father, He, She, God, it's like, I don't think as humans we can grasp the whole thing or have a particular name for it. I think we all have many names for God, or for what helps me be grounded and find that be open to possibilities.
Uh-huh.
So
now you said your favorite hymn was "Spirit of Life."
Here, yeah.
Which is why we sang it at the beginning of the service. So do you pray to the Spirit of Life?
Yes, I think so,
Yeah?
yes.
Okay. Now you're also a singer. I think you've been a professional singer, right?
Yes.
And you have you have two CDs.
I didn't know he had this. Oh my God.
Still for sale, right?
Well, actually, they're all online, like iTunes and stuff like that. Oh my gosh. He didn't tell me this. Oh my. And for me, when I was in about 5th grade, I picked up a guitar, and I play terribly. John, I won't want to play in front of you. But at that point in the Catholic Church, where we were in Chicago, it was very modern, and there were songs that we could do that weren't in the hymnal. So I grasped onto that, and so the singing started in church, and because of it, I stayed around the church and sang in Catholic churches a lot, but then it branched out to others. I became more involved in my adult life with Unity Church, mostly in the Chicago area. Unity's pretty close to what UU has to offer in some ways. And And there, in that popular song with message is what we did a lot. I find that my prayer is often through song. As I sing whatever the message is, it's a prayer for myself, a prayer for you, a prayer for the world, through song. So that leads me.
Now, you said your husband is an atheist.
I don't want to speak for him, but this is the first time that we've come to church together, you. And we've been in Florida maybe a little over 4 years, and we kind of did church shopping when we got here, and went to some Unity churches, and I figured he was doing it for me, you know, that's what we would do is, you know, find a church. But we found a church for us, and that's pretty exciting and different. I think it has a lot to do with the minister and the music for both of us.
Very good. Well, thank you, Margie, for sharing. Next, we have Hot Club SRQ again, followed by a guided meditation by our next speaker, Brian Berry.
Thank you. It wasn't so bad.
Good morning. I'm Brian Berry. Klaus invited me to be here because he thought you'd enjoy hearing about my beliefs because they're weird. They're not weird, of course, and I'm not weird. It's just, as I see it, the way things are. So he asked me, you're going to come up here pretty shortly and not make me organize all this myself, right? Okay, but we're going to do a meditation first. Okay. I'm going to share with you an abbreviated version of the meditation that I was trained to use, holy smoke, 50 years ago, and I've done it every day since. And I do it every time I do, I'll use the funny word, a psychic reading. I do psychic readings and mostly devoted to medical problems. So many of you know that, and some of you have even read my book, which is on Amazon as For Channels, Healers, and Helpers. You'll never remember that title, but if you look up Amazon authors, Brian Berry, you'll find two of us. There's me, and there's a man who has written a book for middle schoolers about honest serial killers. Well, that's not me. Pretty much everything I know about readings is in that book, but I'm not really here to say it's readings that I believe in. What do I believe in? I'm really kind of a Christian, the kind of a Christian who believes Jesus when he says, the kingdom of God is within you. And that's what I follow. And what is my purpose? Well, probably the best theoretician for my purpose is a man named Manly Palmer Hall. If we have some Masons in the group today, he was one of Masonry's great thinkers for the first half of this century. What was the point of it all for Manly Palmer Hall? Integrity. That's a very good goal to have for a psychic. If you looked up psychic in Wikipedia until the last few years, the first word in the entry was fraud. I'm not a fraud, and neither are the 100 or so other psychics that I know. So most of you are not actually interested in being psychic. I wasn't either. I was surprised by it. I grew up an Episcopalian. I became a photographer. I saw myself as a journalist, and then events conspired to move me to a different point of view. And I had to be honest to that. I had to deal with what was actually happening. And that's what made me a psychic. I won't go on and on about that, but this meditation I'm going to share with you is designed, as my teacher said, to turn on your subtle senses. For each physical sense you have, there is a subtle counterpart. You can learn to turn it on and operate with all those senses in a relaxed, meditative, and prayerful state. That's almost my whole story. It's given so briefly that I'm sure that's not widely understood. So I'm going to lead you through that meditation. You're not going to encounter strange symbols or gods whose name you cannot pronounce. I'm going to suggest instead that you close your eyes and see yourself in a meadow and see it as clearly as if you were dreaming in this moment. And I want you to see the trees, and I want you to see whether they are oaks, maples, cedar. I want you to see the horizon. Perhaps even while you're in this state, turn in a circle. See what's behind you. Look up at the sky. See the clouds. Decide whether it's sunny or late in the day or early in the morning. Create all that and make it real. And now look out at the horizon and you see a mountain there. We're going to climb that mountain. You walk out across the meadow and you reach the slope and you begin to climb. And as you do, your legs grow strong and you feel your circulation increase until you come to a terraced garden about a little bit up the mountain, higher than the meadow you started from. Everything in this garden is red. Carnations, tulips, roses. Breathe that in. And I want you to physically take a breath and breathe in red. And then leave this meadow behind, leave this garden behind, and climb higher until you come to a second terraced garden, and this one is largely in orange. You'll see tiger lilies there, sunflowers, and I want you to feel that kind of energy. It's an orange energy, and it's really an energy that helps you let go of things, and that helps you let go of the excitement you felt from the red in the red garden. And having let go of some things, you move higher up the mountain until you come to a yellow garden. And this is, I always see daffodils in this garden. Daffodils that fill the screen like Dr. Zhivago's daffodils, if you remember that scene. And that's yellow is the color of an Easter morning. It's the color of new life. Here you begin things. You begin them in consciousness, which I believe is where we begin everything we do. Soak that up for a minute until you feel yourself becoming new. Then leave that yellow garden and go higher until you come to a green garden. And this is exactly what you think it would be. It's a forest of firs with deep, cool grass and quiet places to rest. And you sit on the grass there for a moment and soak up that green. And as you do, you become aware that you're not alone on this mountain. There is a green presence. For me, it brings to mind a teacher who appeared to me in the middle of a stroke many years ago and took me up this mountain and showed me my life, everything I'd ever done, and commented, this life is a selfish rag. What are you going to do about it? He wasn't mean about it, but it was definitely a call for some changes. So you can see your teacher there, and hopefully he'll have kind of things to say to you on this morning. Then you go higher until you come to a blue garden, and here I see Lake Tahoe, the blueness of a mountain lake. And if you've been there, you know it's impossibly blue, and yet you can see the shadows of the sailboats on the bottom, 30 feet down. That's the kind of blue we see in that blue garden. And you leave the blue garden behind and you go higher to a violet garden. And this violet garden, like the robe of a king or a queen, is a place of power. And here you claim your power as a creator, and you let it fill you. And you recognize that you create everything you do, that in fact you are a first-class creator. You may think that includes miracles, or you may not. You may think you do it with street-level consciousness, or you may not. You're a creator either way. Let that sense of being a creator fill you. And open your eyes, no, not in a moment. In this state, open your eyes and see yourself at the summit of the mountain. And what's in front of you? A temple. No particular temple. You get to create that temple. This is about pluralism. It might be Greek, it might be Roman, it might be Jewish. It's up to you. You go into that temple and you settle down in front of an altar. What's on that altar? No symbols at all, just a light. A light that I believe is the light that lives inside us all. You settle down and you soak up that light. And if you have a mind to do it, you pray for a moment or two. And you make a decision that you will be the light and you will spread it wherever you go and whatever you do. And in time, you'll probably discover that it makes you a healer and a wonderful force and a person with a gift to give all the world. See that light if you can. Soak it up for about 1 minute here in silence. And then feel gratitude. Gratitude that you've had this experience and that you can take it with you and recreate it every time you decide to do it. Rise up then, refreshed. Leave the altar in the temple behind you. Come out on the summit of the mountain and begin to walk down the same path you came up. Back to this earth, unchanged. But if you do this often, you'll see it differently. You'll see an earth that is bursting with life and possibilities. And that's the spirit in which you do this preparation for meditation. It's not a meditation. The silence is the meditation. And what fills you is what you have called to yourself with the love you've expended on the plants and the trees and the clouds and the sky. Not about symbols, but about life on earth. So open your eyes now and be back in this room and feel the people around you. You can feel them, of course you can. The same way when someone you love comes into the room while your back is turned, you know you're not alone. You can feel the people in this room. And you can feel your connection to them and your commitment to them. And what is your commitment? To spread the light. And that's all there is to that. Now that can take you 40 minutes, or it can take you 3. I think we just took about 3. That's what Klaus asked me to do this in. With practice, all of these things light up and become very, very real. And when they do, heavens to Betsy, you'll start seeing the things that I see. So yes, I'm a clairvoyant, and I do medical readings. And that probably offends a few people. I hope it doesn't. Integrity is my watchword. And when I do a medical reading, details are what I come up with. So that probably offends even more people. I hope not. I know 100 people who do this in the same way that I do, and all of us were inspired by Edgar Cayce, a name many of you will know. So, do we sing now, Klaus, or do we do an interview?
Meditation on breathing, please remain seated.
Meditation on breathing. Please remain seated while we sing. Prepared for this the other night, and I gave him much too much to read. So, Klaus, go for it.
Yeah, there we are. Put this aside. Okay. So, Brian, you told me that you had a near-death experience which changed your life. How did that happen?
I'll tell this as briefly as I can. I was living in one of the residential colleges at Yale, and I was dealing with what usually gets called a dark night of the soul. I had a 1-year-old infant, still at his birth weight, at 1 year of age. And I was wrestling with that, and I had a house in the country. I had spent the day putting polyurethane on the floor, and I came back with a roaring headache, and I walked in the door and collapsed in the doorway. And I was unconscious there for 3 days and nights. Eventually, I woke up enough to crawl to a phone. The ambulance came and took me to Yale New Haven Hospital. And in those years, this is 71, brain imagery was in its infancy. So they did some imagery, and the neurologist who did it said, "Have you ever been shot in the back of the head with a very small caliber bullet? You have quite a lesion there." Well, that was the polyurethane. And he eventually concurred. I didn't know that, he told me. And I did recover, fortunately without any consequences that I'm conscious of. I mean, aside from old age. And while I was in that period of unconsciousness, a man came, a silver-haired man, who picked me up from behind and flew me to that mountaintop we just went to, where I saw my entire life, every scene in it. And when I came back from that experience, that man had loved me so completely, all I wanted in the world was to be in that presence again. And that is what often happens in a near-death experience. So I began to pray and meditate. I was a perfectly good Episcopalian until that point. I began to pray and meditate, and before long, changes came into my life, and this happened through a dream. I went to Virginia Beach and I got a reading to help my infant son. And a psychic named Paul Solomon gave me a very simple prescription. He said, this baby's organs are inflamed from start to finish. Mix cow's milk and lime water, half and half, and give him nothing else. And he gained 7 ounces in the first. He gained 5 ounces in the first 7 days and recovered entirely. So yeah, I always lose it at this point. So I returned to Virginia Beach. I studied with him. I brought him up to Yale and had him speak to the medical school and the nursing school students, and followed him back to Virginia Beach and learned his methods. So I am not a psychic who blossomed in the backyard, nor was I a psychic who was one from childhood. I'm a trained psychic. I trained with him 24 hours a day for 3 years until I learned his methods and traveled all over North America and Europe, teaching them. I still teach occasionally, but not so very much. You may think there's not much money in being a psychic, but there's even less money in teaching it. So I made a change that seemed to me logical. I went back to school, and with Nancy, my wife's help, became a school psychologist and spent the next 26 years working with children who were in difficulties in school, and especially specialized in preschools, multi-handicapped preschoolers at a center in Branford, Connecticut. So that's my story told briefly. Did I answer your question?
You did, yes, and we're running out of time, so
Okay.
we'll have to continue some other time. Thank you.
I usually tell that in an hour, but I tried to do better.
So Brian, thank you for sharing your story, your time, your talent. One thing we all share to keep the work of this church going is our treasures. So as we take up our offering, please be as generous as you can. For those online or those here on your cell phone, there's a link to donate in the description of the YouTube video or the QR code in your order of service and on our screen. Our offertory music is our next speaker's favorite hymn, which we will sing at the end of the service. Some of you will recognize it. For those who don't, we thought it would be a good idea for you to become familiar with it. Let this sacred time begin.
Thank you.
your faith story, your spiritual journey?
Well, I was raised as an Episcopalian. Catholicism, with all the ritual of Catholicism and none of the guilt. I went to church almost every Sunday with my family through high school. I was also involved in Young Life, which was an organization for youth that tried to promote Jesus Christ as your Savior. After high school, though, I only attended church if I was with my parents. About 40 years ago, I moved to Florida, and I was working as a probate paralegal. The last attorney I worked for used to have weekly prayer meetings in his office, where we would go around and tell him what we wanted him to pray for, because women needed man to speak directly to God. Women weren't able to do this, apparently. I later realized that this was one of the tenets of Christian nationalism, but I didn't know it at the time. Okay, so after that, I had a hard time reconciling the dogmatic absolutism of Christianity with all the other worldly religions, which also offered a path to salvation. So at this point, I'm also thinking that perhaps God is really a goddess. I had a lot of lesbian friends who would always talk about the goddess, and I thought that made sense to me, that women were much more nurturing than men were. And I know in Africa it was a matriarchal society there hundreds of years ago. So I felt pretty comfortable with that. So that kind of dealt with the problem of not believing in a particular religion. But I still wasn't sure about God. I have to admit that in a pinch, I would say a prayer and hope that it was reaching someone in the right place, that I would be looked upon favorably. But then I wasn't sure about, well, I started to believe during all the emphasis on fact, during the last political upheaval, that we're actually created out of slime. I don't believe in creationism, and I think that we all came out of the, somehow some astrophysical event happened, and I now feel a lot more comfortable with just believing that we're spirits, that when we die, our spirits go into the ether, and they meet other spirits that are also up there. And I believe, too, that there are people here on earth that are still alive who can communicate with these spirits.
Okay, but you told me you're an atheist.
I am. I don't believe in a God. But I believe that there are spiritual, I suppose I'm spiritual.
Okay.
In a sense.
All right. You said you found us through your friend Miriam, right?
Yes, yes.
Who's also in the choir, which is actually a reminder to us, because it's surprising a large number of people don't find us and come to us through a personal invitation. They may know about us, but often it takes someone, a friend, to say, you know, they're doing something here this Sunday, why don't you come with me? So it's a reminder to all of us to reach out to our friends and invite them to come. Now, when I asked you what your favorite hymn was, you kind of knocked my socks off, because you said you're an atheist, and yet your favorite hymn is How Great Thou Art. Now how can you sing a song? I mean, there's an old joke about Unitarian Universalists. We have a hard time singing because we're usually looking ahead to see if we agree with the words. And it's also said, you hardly ever hear the word God in a Unitarian Universalist unless someone trips and falls. So Pam, how can you sing about a God you don't believe in?
Well, I suppose that I first heard the song when I was involved in Young Life, and I love the music. I love just the music of it all, and and the words are not that important to me. I just love the music, and I think that's what I love about singing in the choir. My voice is no longer any good anymore, but I can read music. I can pretty much stay on tune. And I just love singing with the choir. I love the fellowship. And I think this place is quite marvelous. I love the fact that there's no creed. I think that it's basically a congregation of older white people who have had marvelous experiences during their life and love to share their lives with others.
Well, in that, oops, there we are. Well, in that vein, let's go ahead and sing that song as our closing hymn. If you'll all rise as you're willing and able, and join in singing, How Great Thou Art. Robert Mayfried Doss. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it, step by step. Please join me now in reciting the words on this, well, the words you know by heart anyway, come on.